While honeymooning in a national park, a highly capable outdoorsman was faced with a grueling situation. A nature hike turned life-altering. Shayne Patrick Burke went from honeymoon bliss to, "Is this how I'm gonna die?" He's a 35-year-old who lives in New Hampshire with his wife and dog. A true warrior who has faced down more than most of us could even imagine. His preparation, his instincts, and a little bit of fate directed his survival outcome. Let's dive into his harrowing tale of being mauled by a grizzly bear in May of 2024. Shayne is from South Hadley, Massachusetts, a disabled veteran who is serving in the Army Reserve. He served in the Army for 17 years. Shayne is no stranger to adversity. He has survived deployments to Iraq where he was shot at, mortared, and even hit by IED explosions. His challenges didn't end on the battlefield. In 2021, he underwent emergency eye surgery for an open globe injury. And in 2022, he had a surgery to remove a brain tumor called an acoustic neuroma. Through it all, Shayne's passion for nature and wildlife photography has been his anchor. He photographed bison, fox, falcons, owls, seals, raccoons, moose, you name it. He's an avid outdoorsman. He's a rock climber and hunter in the Northeast as well. In early 2024, he married Chloe. At the time, she was an EMT and in nursing school. The couple decided to celebrate overcoming his health challenges with a dream honeymoon exploring national parks across the U.S. On May 19th of 2024, it was a Sunday afternoon. Shayne and Chloe were in Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. The couple went for a walk with their dog on Signal Mountain Road. During the walk, Chloe and the dog decided to turn back, and Shayne decided to embark on a solo hike along Signal Mountain Road. It was a known hot spot for seeing great gray owls, which he hoped to photograph. He informed Chloe he would return to the parking lot in about an hour. He was carrying a small day pack, binoculars, fanny pack, and bear spray, a precaution he always took in bear country, having researched grizzly encounter protocols in advance. About an hour and a half into his hike, he realized that Chloe might be worried, so he started heading back using his phone's GPS, despite the spotty service. It was around 2 or 3 p.m. Now Shayne started feeling uneasy. He was in a dense wooded valley. Needless to say, it was giving him predator vibes. So he made noise by breaking branches, singing, and talking loudly to avoid surprising any wildlife, especially the bears. Suddenly, Shayne spotted a brown bear cub, about 50 to 70 yards ahead, running up a hill in the opposite direction. His heart sank. He knew the mama bear was most likely nearby, because mama bears are extremely protective over their cubs. He immediately unholstered his bear spray, and sure enough, before he could deploy it, the sow, estimated around 400 pounds with 4-inch claws, charged from the underbush, closing the gap in seconds. Shayne stood his ground, unholstered his bear spray, shouted, and tried to deploy it, but the bear closed the gap too fast. Remembering what he had read about grizzly encounters, he turned his back, dropped to his stomach in a prone position, and interlocked his hands behind his neck to protect his vital organs and arteries. The attack was brutal. The bear's first bite and slash targeted Shayne's right shoulder and back, causing him to scream in pain. She stepped on his back, biting into one of his legs. She lifted him off the ground and slammed him down multiple times. She tore into each leg about 3 times, from his buttocks to his inner knees. Shayne screamed again during the final leg bite, which drew the bear's attention to his head. She went for what Shayne believes was a kill bite to his neck, but his interlocked hands shielded his carotid arteries. Shayne later stated, "I was able to stay quiet for a couple of seconds, but she really got me good with one of the bites, and I just let out this blood-curdling scream. And that's when she turned her attention to my head. She bit my wrist, exposed my bone. She bit my right hand and exposed all my tendons and hand bones. And simultaneously, the bear's jaws punctured the can, causing it to explode in her mouth with a burst of pepper spray while she was biting his hands and the back of his neck. This repelled the Momma Grizzly, who fled with her cub, ending the assault." Shayne stated, "My first thought when I heard the bear can pop was that it was actually my skull cracking and that she was going to kill me. I felt a very warm fluid flow down my back and down my face, and I just thought it was my blood." Severely injured but alive, Shayne heard the bear retreating and immediately ran in the opposite direction up a hill to create distance, despite all his injuries. He was about a mile away from the parking lot by the time he stopped running. Badly wounded and with the pepper spray now affecting him too, he attempted to call Chloe, but the call failed due to the spotty service. So he texts the word "attacked." Drawing on his Army training and Chloe's EMT guidance, he knew he had no arterial bleeds, but he needed to slow the blood loss. He applied improvised tourniquets using his backpack straps, camera straps, and fanny pack. He dialed 911, gripping a knife with his back against a tree, prepared for the bear's possible return. Alone in the woods, he accepted the possibility of death and recorded a short video message for his loved ones. Rescue efforts began swiftly. Using the 911 call, dispatchers triangulated his location despite poor signal. With his legs barely working, Shayne crawled about 200 yards to a clearing to facilitate pickup. A helicopter spotted him, and the first ranger arrived. He assessed his injuries and applied field dressings after packing the wounds. He was airlifted out of the woods, lowered into the Signal Mountain parking lot, and transported by ambulance to St. John's Health in Jackson, Wyoming, where they performed emergency surgery to clean and staple his injuries. His injuries included a broken shoulder bone, deep puncture wounds to his back and shoulder, multiple bites to both legs, exposing bones and tendons in places, slashes to his inner knees and buttocks, bites to his left wrist and right hand, and gashes to the back of his neck. Despite the severity, no major arteries were hit, which Shayne attributed to his protective positioning. He was discharged from the hospital the next day on May 20th, 2024. In the aftermath, Shayne's recovery was tough but miraculous. The entire rescue took approximately 2 hours from the time of the attack. One of the first things he told the rangers upon rescue, "Please don't kill the bear. She was just defending her cub." And thankfully, the park officials agreed, since it was a natural defensive response. They didn't pursue or euthanize her. Reflecting on it all, Shayne credits his survival to knowing bear safety protocols, carrying bear spray and not letting go of it, and his military training. and Shayne gave Chloe credit for organizing the search party. He compared the ordeal to his brain tumor battle, saying the universe tested him again, but he came out stronger. "I call this a miracle." Chloe stated, "No one starts their day thinking, 'I'm going to get attacked by a bear today,' but it happened to us. I'm really grateful that my husband was prepared, and he has these wonderful instincts." As of June 2024, Shayne continued healing with no major complications reported. He resumed photography and outdoor activities cautiously. Experts agree Shayne did everything right, and his story is now inspiring others to stay prepared in bear country. Look for him on Instagram. I'd like to share a personal story about a mama black bear and her cub. I wouldn't consider this a miracle story, more comical and slightly scary. It was the middle of June of this year, 2025. My daughter and I decided to take a camping trip to the Pacific Northwest coast. We were going to rough it in a tent with my daughter's dog. Now, when I say rough it, I mean we're staying in a campground with picnic tables, fire pits. There's a full-on bathroom with running water, showers, and toilets. We stayed at the first campground for 2 nights. It was Thursday and Friday night. They were booked for the next 2 nights, so we switched locations. We drove north about 45 minutes. My daughter had stayed at this campground before, and I have to admit it was really nice. We felt at home and it was beautiful. So we unpacked the vehicle and started setting up. We heard what we thought was a baby crying. This happened off and on for 2 days. The campground was pretty empty, which was surprising to me since it was so beautiful and it was a weekend in June. Later that night, we were making dinner, and once again, I heard a baby cry. My daughter, she heard it too. I looked around, and there was only one other camper who was fairly close to us. The other campers were across a large field, and those folks, they were staying in RVs, and it didn't sound like the baby cry was coming from them. So I proceeded to eyeball the guy who occupied the spot 3 spaces down. We're talking 10 car lengths away. He had a tent set up, and he would occasionally peek into the tent and then sit back down in his lawn chair. I just assumed he had a wife and a child inside the tent, and his wife was doing all the heavy lifting, or he was letting them sleep. Another thing we noticed while we were cooking dinner, every once in a while, the trees behind us would move. They would sway, and the branches would even break. There were some larger branches laying around. The trees were dense, and they ran behind the row of campsites we were staying in. I just figured it was the wind. It seemed logical to me. Looking back, I now question my logics on this subject. The first night there was great. Everything went smoothly. We cooked, had a campfire, roasted marshmallows, and went to bed. We slept hard that night and went to the ocean the next day. We returned to the campsite that evening and we were worn out. We came back sunburnt and drained from the ocean. We were ready to eat, shower, and go to bed. Even my daughter's hyperactive dog was exhausted. She got on her bed and didn't move. So we did just that. We cleaned up and went to bed around 9 p.m. We laid in bed and we talked for a while. Then we watched a few videos on YouTube and drifted off to sleep. And then an hour later, it was chaos. Something or someone was in a complete uproar right outside our tent. I was jolted awake, heart pounding, thinking some creep's stealing our cooler and smashing our chairs. For a minute, I thought it was the guy 3 sites down. Maybe he was the creeper. But he packed up everything early that morning and left. So unless he was coming back to attack us, we didn't know what was going on. My daughter stood up screaming, "Get out of here!" She peeked out the tent flap and saw a small animal running off. Maybe a dog, a deer, a baby bear. We were clueless. I grabbed my taser just in case, and we nervously settled back down. Things got quiet and we were dozing off. Five minutes later, it was like Bigfoot was back for round 2. And I heard something huge right outside the tent, 3 feet from my head. I sparked my taser like it was going to scare off a Bigfoot. My daughter unzipped the tent and peeked out, and there she was. A mama black bear staring at us like we were the worst Airbnb guests ever. We were just 2 women with no bear spray, no pepper spray, no guns, and apparently no common sense. My daughter jumped back up, unzipped the flap, and started yelling, "Hey bear, hey bear." The mama bear looked over at her, sniffed the air, and basically laughed at her. The sound of my taser didn't even faze her. The bear, she was like, "Nice try, lady, but I'm here for the snacks." My daughter's guard dog, not a peep. She was chilling like, "Y'all got this, right?" She went back and curled up on my daughter's pillow and looked back at her like, "You're gonna save me, aren't you, if anything happens?" We were in a pickle. 2 ladies and a useless guard dog, trapped inside a tent with a mother bear 5 feet away. I can honestly say not having bear spray was a dumbass move. My daughter, bless her heart, had a light bulb moment. She grabbed the car keys, hit the car alarm, and let it blast. It blared like a foghorn at 11 p.m. at night. The bear freaked out and ran off. So being the thick-headed women that we are, we debated whether we should tough it out till morning or pack up and flee. But before we could make up our mind, the bear decided it for us. That damn bear came back. It was car alarm round 2. The bear freaked out and she ran off. At this point, we were risking a trilogy. We weren't debating our situation anymore. We decided to get the beep out of there. One problem, we were too scared to leave the tent. What if she's out there, ready to eat us? So we hatched a plan. We deflated the air mattresses as fast as we could. We shoved everything into bags and organized it by the tent door, like we were Navy SEALs. The car alarm was on standby, and the headlights were blazing. We were ready to move. We set up the car alarm again while my daughter grabbed bags to take to the car. I walked out with the dog, put her in the car, went back for bags with my hands on the keys, while she loaded up the rest of our stuff and started tearing down the tent. She broke down the tent in record time. We found our camp stove tossed 10 feet from the picnic table, and our chairs were flipped over. We had cleaned up the stove, but apparently bears can smell last week's bacon grease like it's a 5-star buffet. We were packed in the car and heading out of there by midnight with a 4-hour drive home. I guess our tricks worked because we never did see the bears again. Leaving the headlights on, running the car, it all seemed to help in the end. We were pretty rattled, but we were also relieved. Those baby cries? Yeah, that was the bear cub. The lone camper 3 sites down. We saw him leave early Sunday morning, and he left by himself. He was a single guy, so those cries were definitely not coming from him. The wind in the trees, that was most likely Mama Bear probably judging our campsite setup. To lighten the mood on the way home, I blasted the bare necessities on my phone. We had a 4-hour drive home on a windy road, slowing down for 8 to 10 deer throughout the night. I can't really tell you which was scarier, the deer on the road or the bears. Needless to say, we survived. Let's just say my camping career is on indefinite hiatus. If you have any of your own interesting bear stories or camping stories that you'd like to share, leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Have a good week.